The doctor never knew he was a father until the birth of secret twins turned his world upside down overnight. Nothing could have prepared him for the truth. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. Boston, December 2008. Snowflakes drifted lazily past the windows of Harvard Medical Center, collecting on the ledges in delicate white patterns. Inside, the corridors gleamed under fluorescent lights, the antiseptic smell mingling with pine-scented holiday decorations. Lauren Mitchell clutched her leather handbag tighter, feeling the outline of the pregnancy test within it, the plastic still warm from being handled repeatedly during her 30-minute bus ride. 24 years old, with her administrative degree still fresh in its frame and a wardrobe that screamed, "recent graduate trying to look professional," Lauren felt distinctly out of place among the confident physicians who strode past her. Her chestnut hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, her drugstore makeup applied with extra care this morning. She had even splurged on a new blouse, forest green, to match the season and to bring out the flecks in her hazel eyes that now darted nervously to every passing face. The heels of her sensible pumps clicked against the polished floor as she made her way toward the neurosurgery department. Each step carried her closer to the office of Dr. William Harrison, her boyfriend of 3 years, the rising surgical star whose name was already whispered with reverence in medical circles. At 32, William was the golden boy of Harvard Medical, tall, with aristocratic features, sandy hair always perfectly styled, and blue eyes that could charm donors out of millions at fundraising galas. The third generation of Harrison physicians, he carried his family legacy with the easy confidence of someone who had never questioned his place in the world. Lauren paused outside his office door, its frosted glass panel bearing his name and credentials in authoritative black lettering. She drew a deep breath, touching her still flat abdomen briefly before knocking. "Come in," called the familiar voice that still gave her butterflies after 3 years together. William's office was everything she had expected when they first started dating, spacious and elegant, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Charles River. Snow gathered on the branches of bare trees along the riverbank, the scene reminiscent of a holiday card. Books lined custom shelves, diplomas and awards adorned the walls, and an antique desk that had belonged to his grandfather dominated the space. William looked up from his computer, his expression neutral as he removed his reading glasses. "Lauren, this is unexpected. I thought we were meeting for dinner tonight." "We are," she said, her voice higher than usual. I needed to talk to you about something important, in person." He glanced at his watch, a Rolex, a gift from his parents when he completed his residency. "I have a department meeting in 20 minutes. "This won't take long," Lauren promised, sinking into the leather chair across from him. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened her purse and withdrew the pregnancy test, placing it on the desk between them. William's eyes dropped to the plastic stick, then back to her face. His expression remained unreadable. "I took 3 different tests," Lauren said, filling the silence. "They're all positive. I'm pregnant, Will." For a moment, neither spoke. Outside, the snow fell harder, the flakes whipping against the window as the wind picked up. "You're sure?" he finally asked, his voice cool and clinical, the same tone he might use discussing a patient's test results. Lauren nodded, a tentative smile forming. "About 6 weeks, I think. I know this isn't planned, but—" "You really think this is the right time?" William interrupted, leaning back in his chair. The question hung in the air, sharp as an icicle. "I know it's unexpected," Lauren rushed to explain, her smile faltering. "But we've been together for 3 years. We've talked about marriage, about a future together. Maybe this is just happening a little sooner than we planned." William's face changed then, something cold and unfamiliar settling over his features. A slight, caustic laugh escaped his lips. "Lauren, let's be realistic. You were convenient while I was building my career. Pleasant company, certainly, but never part of the long-term plan." The words hit her like a physical blow. Lauren's breath caught in her throat. What are you saying? I thought I'm saying, William continued, his voice taking on an edge she'd never heard before, that this is extraordinarily poor timing. I'm about to be named the youngest department head in the hospital's history. The board votes next month. So we'll figure it out, Lauren insisted, desperation creeping into her voice. Lots of doctors have families. Your own father was chief of surgery with 3 children. William's laugh was sharper this time, cutting through her words. My father was married to my mother, a cardiothoracic surgeon from a family that has donated wings to this hospital. Context matters, Lauren. He stood, moving to look out at the river, hands clasped behind his back. When he turned, his face was set in lines of practiced regret that didn't reach his eyes. You'll never be enough for someone like me, he said, each word precisely delivered. Look at yourself, a simple administration graduate from a state university, while I come from 3 generations of Harvard medical physicians. You're nothing but a burden to my career now. Lauren felt as though the floor had dropped away beneath her. The gentle snow outside, the tasteful office, the man she loved. Everything seemed suddenly alien and hostile. William moved with deliberate steps back to his desk. He opened the top drawer and removed a checkbook bound in burgundy leather. The sound of his pen scratching across paper filled the silence. $1,000, he said, tearing the check free and sliding it across the polished mahogany. Resolve the problem and don't contact me again. Consider it an investment in our separate futures. Lauren stared at the check, unable to process what was happening. I want you to be practical, William cut in. You're 24, with an entry-level position and student loans. I'm offering you a clean start. A clean start, Lauren repeated numbly. Somewhere deep inside, something was shattering, the pieces too numerous to count. You'll never amount to anything compared to what I can achieve on my own, William added, almost as an afterthought. He glanced at his watch again. I need to prepare for my meeting. I trust you can see yourself out. Mechanically, Lauren reached for the check, her fingers closing around the paper that had just been assigned more value than their relationship, than the life growing inside her. She rose on unsteady legs, clutching her purse to her chest like armor. At the door, she paused, turning back for one last look at the man she had loved, searching for any sign of the William who had held her through her father's heart attack, who had danced with her in the rain on her graduation day. His attention was already back on his computer screen, her dismissal complete. 10 minutes later, Lauren stood alone in the hospital parking lot, watching William's silver Porsche pull away into the snowy evening. Tears froze on her cheeks in the bitter December wind. In her coat pocket, the check felt impossibly heavy. She pulled out her phone with numb fingers, checking her bank balance. $237.43. Not even enough for next month's share of rent in the Cambridge apartment she split with 2 other recent graduates. The realization of her situation descended on her like the gathering darkness. Alone, pregnant, with barely enough money to last 2 weeks. William's words echoed in her mind. You'll never be enough for someone like me. You'll never amount to anything compared to what I can achieve. Lauren sank onto a bench near the bus stop, brushing away snow that immediately began to collect again on her coat. Her mind raced through limited options. Her roommates were both ambitious young professionals who'd made their feelings about children clear. They wouldn't want a baby disrupting their lives. Her job at the consulting firm was still probationary. Her conservative family in Ohio would be devastated by an out-of-wedlock pregnancy. A bus pulled up, its doors opening with a hydraulic sigh. Lauren remained on the bench, watching it depart without her. Another would come. She needed time to think. She recalled their first date. William had taken her to a faculty dinner, proudly introducing her to his colleagues. How he'd looked at her then, as though she were precious and fascinating. When had that changed? Had it ever been real at all? Lauren wiped her eyes with her gloved hand, smearing mascara across her cheek. The check in her pocket seemed to burn through the fabric, $1,000 to erase her inconvenient existence from William Harrison's perfect life. The next bus appeared through the curtain of snow. This time Lauren stood, her decision not yet made but her immediate path clear. She needed to get home, to warm up, to think clearly about what came next. As the bus doors closed behind her, Lauren took one last look at the illuminated windows of Harvard Medical Center. In one of those rooms, William was likely dazzling colleagues with his brilliance, his future assured, their 3 years together already fading from his mind like a forgettable dream. Her hand moved instinctively to her stomach. "It's just you and me now," she whispered, too quietly for the other passengers to hear. 15 years later, as she ascended the stage to accept the Innovator of the Year award at the Plaza Hotel, Lauren could still hear the echo of those cruel words, though now they sounded like the sweetest irony. The numbers on Lauren's bank account app seemed to blur before her eyes as she sat on the edge of her bed the morning after her confrontation with William. $237.43. The rent for her share of the Cambridge apartment was due in 2 weeks. $650 she didn't have. The torn pieces of William's check lay scattered in her wastebasket, a decision made in anger that she couldn't bring herself to regret, even now. January in Boston arrived with brutal cold that seemed to seep through the poorly insulated windows of her apartment. Lauren wrapped herself in a second-hand sweater, trying to quiet the nausea that had become her morning companion. The bathroom door opened, and her roommate Melissa emerged in a cloud of expensive perfume. "Bathroom's free," she said, barely glancing at Lauren as she gathered her designer purse. "Some of us have to get to work on time." The barb wasn't subtle. For the 3rd time that week, Lauren had called in sick to the consulting firm where she'd worked since graduation. Morning sickness didn't adhere to professional schedules, and her supervisor's patience was wearing thin. Lauren made it to the bathroom just in time, emptying what little remained in her stomach from yesterday's crackers and ginger ale. As she rinsed her mouth, she caught her reflection, pale, with dark circles forming under her eyes. This wasn't how she'd imagined her life at 24. Her phone buzzed with a text from her supervisor. "Need to see you today. No exceptions." 2 hours later, Lauren sat across from Gerald Weber, the 50-something division manager whose Boston Consulting Group coffee mug perpetually smelled of bourbon. "Lauren, your performance has been declining for weeks," he said without preamble. 3 sick days already this month, projects delivered late, clients commenting on your lack of focus. "I've been dealing with some health issues," Lauren began, hands clasped tightly in her lap. "But I'm working through it, I just need—" "What you need," Weber interrupted, "is to decide whether you want this job, because right now, you're not showing it." She thought about telling him about the pregnancy. Surely there were protections for expectant mothers, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she promised improvement, knowing even as she spoke that it was a promise she couldn't keep. When she returned to her desk, a pink slip waited. Effective immediately, it read. Severance, 2 weeks' pay, not even enough for next month's rent. That evening, Lauren sat at the kitchen table with her roommates Melissa and Jen, both ambitious young professionals whose perfectly coordinated lives left no room for disruption. "I'm pregnant," Lauren finally admitted, the words hanging in the air between mugs of herbal tea. "Oh my God," Jen said, eyes widening. "Is it Williams? Does he know?" Lauren nodded, then recounted yesterday's confrontation at the hospital. With each detail, her roommate's expressions shifted from shock to pity, a look Lauren was quickly learning to despise. "The thing is," Melissa said carefully after Lauren finished, "our lease is up for renewal next month. We were going to tell you anyway that we're moving to a 2-bedroom in Back Bay." "We just can't have a baby here," Jen added quickly. "The crying, the mess, it's not what we signed up for." "When do you need me out?" Lauren asked, her voice hollow. "The lease ends January 31st, Melissa replied, not meeting her eyes. "Less than 3 weeks. No job, no apartment, and now, no roommates." Lauren nodded mechanically, excusing herself to her room where she sank onto her bed, mind racing through increasingly desperate scenarios. The next morning, after another bout of sickness, Lauren made a decision. If William wouldn't take responsibility, perhaps his family would help. The Harrisons were Boston medical royalty, with a sense of noblesse oblige, if nothing else. She found the address easily, a stately brownstone in Beacon Hill with tasteful holiday decorations still adorning the entrance. Lauren's knock was answered by a housekeeper who eyed her warily. "I need to speak with Dr. and Mrs. Harrison," Lauren explained. "It's about their son, William." 5 minutes later, she sat stiffly in an immaculate living room across from Eleanor Harrison, a slim woman in her 60s whose pearls gleamed against her cashmere sweater. The resemblance to William was striking, the same blue eyes, now regarding Lauren with clinical detachment. "William mentioned you might try something like this," Eleanor said, her voice like ice. "He said you were distraught about the end of your relationship." "Did he tell you I'm pregnant with his child?" Lauren asked directly. Eleanor's expression didn't change. "My dear, William has been quite clear about the situation. He offered financial assistance which you apparently refused." "He offered to pay for an abortion," Lauren corrected. "He offered you a solution," Eleanor countered smoothly. "One that would benefit everyone involved." "Not everyone," Lauren said, hand moving instinctively to her abdomen. Eleanor sighed, placing her teacup on the saucer with a delicate clink. "Ms. Mitchell, let me be frank. The Harrisons have endured generations of young women with similar claims. William is poised to become the youngest department head in Harvard medical history. His future is extraordinary." "And mine isn't?" Lauren challenged. "Precisely." Eleanor's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Should you continue with these accusations, our family attorney will pursue a defamation case immediately. I suggest you reconsider William's generous offer before it's withdrawn." Lauren left the brownstone with tears freezing on her cheeks for the second time in as many days. Another door closed. That night she made the hardest call of all, to her parents in Dayton, Ohio. "Mom," she said when her mother answered, her voice breaking, "I need to talk to you and Dad about something important." She explained the situation as gently as possible to her conservative Catholic parents. The silence that followed her confession stretched painfully. "Lauren Rose Mitchell," her mother finally said, voice trembling, "we raised you better than this." "I know, Mom, but I need help now. I've lost my job, my apartment." "There's a center in Cleveland," her father interrupted, taking the phone. "Your cousin Margie volunteers there. They help girls in your situation." "What kind of center?" Lauren asked, though she already knew. "The kind that helps you correct your mistake," her father said, his voice strained. "Like that doctor suggested." Another door closed. Lauren ended the call with a promise to think about it, knowing she never would. The following week brought her first prenatal appointment at a community clinic, the only place she could afford without insurance. As Lauren lay on the examination table, the technician moved the ultrasound wand across her still flat abdomen. The technician said, adjusting the screen. "Is something wrong?" Lauren asked, panic rising. "Not wrong," the technician replied slowly. "But I'm seeing 2 distinct heartbeats." "2 heartbeats?" Lauren repeated. The technician turned the screen toward her, pointing to 2 flickering pulses. "Congratulations, you're having twins." Lauren stared at the screen in disbelief. Not 1 baby, but 2. Twins. The magnitude of her situation doubled in an instant. That night, in the tiny room she'd rented in Somerville, all she could afford with her dwindling savings, Lauren sat on the edge of a sagging mattress, the ultrasound printout in her hands. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance, and a couple argued loudly in the apartment next door. The radiator clanked ineffectually against the January chill. Lauren looked around at her new reality. A room barely 10 feet square, with water stains on the ceiling and a shared bathroom down the hall. Then she looked back at the ultrasound, at the 2 tiny lives depending entirely on her. You'll never know rejection like I have," she whispered to the grainy image, her voice gaining strength with each word. She reached into her purse and pulled out William's check, which she had retrieved and taped back together in a moment of weakness. $1,000, the price he'd placed on erasing his responsibilities. Slowly, deliberately, Lauren tore the check into tiny pieces, letting them fall like confetti onto the threadbare carpet. In the days that followed, Lauren created a survival plan. She secured 3 jobs: receptionist at a dental clinic during the day, waitress at a diner in the evenings, and on weekends, freelance data entry work she could do from her rented room. The schedule was grueling, but between the 3 positions, she could just afford rent, food, and prenatal vitamins. Her first day at the diner, Lauren's feet throbbed after 8 hours at the dental clinic. She donned the polyester uniform that stretched uncomfortably across her growing middle and tied on the stained apron with Sal's Diner, embroidered in faded red thread. "You're taking Section 3, the manager said, pointing to a row of booths along the window. "And try to smile. Nobody tips a grouch." By the end of her 6-hour shift, Lauren's feet had swollen so much she had to unlace her sneakers to relieve the pressure. As she counted her tips, $47.35, she noticed a $5 bill with a note scrawled on a napkin, "For the little one. God bless." The kindness from a stranger burned worse than William's cruelty. Pity was more difficult to hate than contempt. Weekends brought no rest. Lauren hunched over her second-hand laptop, entering endless columns of data for an accounting firm that paid by the spreadsheet. The work was mind-numbing but crucial. Every dollar moved her closer to financial stability before the twins arrived. Between shifts, Lauren began visiting the public library, checking out books on business administration, biotechnology, and pharmaceutical development. She had absorbed more than she realized during her 3 years with William, listening to his discussions about medical research and drug development. A plan began to form, not just for survival, but for something more. At night, when exhaustion finally overcame discomfort, Lauren dreamed of laboratories and boardrooms, of innovations and breakthroughs. In these dreams, she stood at podiums accepting awards while William watched from the audience, unrecognized and forgotten. By May, Lauren's once flat abdomen had become an unmistakable dome. Her dental receptionist job was secure, but waitressing had become increasingly difficult. 7 months pregnant with twins, her feet swelled so severely that she removed her shoes between tables, slipping them on only when approaching customers. On a particularly difficult Friday evening, Lauren served a table of businesswomen celebrating a promotion. One woman, wearing a suit that cost more than Lauren's monthly rent, became increasingly irritated by the slow service. "If you can't handle the job, perhaps you should find another occupation," she snapped when Lauren brought the wrong drink order. "Some of us have important careers to return to." Lauren apologized mechanically, retreating to the kitchen where she pressed her palms against the cool metal prep table, fighting back tears. When she returned with the correct order, the woman deliberately knocked her water glass over. "Clean it up," she demanded, not bothering to look at Lauren. "You're too slow anyway, pregnant girl." As Lauren bent awkwardly to wipe the spill, a sharp pain lanced through her abdomen. She gasped, clutching the edge of the table. "Now what's your problem?" the woman asked irritably. Another contraction answered the question. Lauren's water broke in a sudden gush, soaking her shoes and the freshly mopped floor. Hours later, in the delivery room of Massachusetts General Hospital, Lauren gripped the side rails of the bed, facing the pain alone. No hand to hold, no words of encouragement, just the clinical efficiency of medical staff attending yet another delivery. "One more push," the doctor instructed, and Lauren summoned her last reserves of strength. At 2:47 in the morning, Ethan Mitchell entered the world, followed 3 minutes later by his sister, Emma. As the nurses placed the swaddled infants in her arms, Lauren studied their tiny faces, both with a dusting of dark hair and, when they briefly opened their eyes, the startling blue that marked them unmistakably as William's. "You're beautiful," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Perfect. In that moment, holding her children for the first time, Lauren made a silent vow that would shape the next 15 years. One day, the world will know who we are, and he will know too. While counting the modest dollars from her tip jar, Lauren couldn't possibly imagine that she would one day refuse an $8 billion acquisition offer, with a son on the cusp of a Nobel nomination and a daughter whose algorithms would revolutionize medical diagnosis. The twins' first night home was a blur of feeding, changing, and brief moments of terrified sleep. Lauren's tiny rented room in Somerville suddenly felt even smaller, with 2 bassinet boxes serving as makeshift cribs positioned at the foot of her bed. The landlady, Mrs. Petrov, had looked at the twins with a mixture of suspicion and pity when Lauren had struggled up the 3 flights of stairs with her newborns. "Rent still due first of month," Mrs. Petrov had reminded her, eyeing the babies as if they might damage the property value. No exceptions for babies. By the end of the first week, Lauren had established a punishing routine. She woke at 5 in the morning to feed and change the twins before rushing to her receptionist job at the dental clinic by 8. Her maternity leave had been non-existent, a perk of being a new hire without benefits. During her lunch break, she would race home to check on the twins, who were watched by a neighbor's teenage daughter for a fraction of what proper childcare would cost. At 5 in the evening, Lauren would relieve the babysitter, spend 30 precious minutes with her children, then bundle them into a double stroller for her 6 o'clock shift at Sal's Diner. The manager had grudgingly allowed her to keep the twins in the back storage room, checking on them between serving tables. "You're the hardest working girl I've seen," Sal himself told her one night, his weathered face creased with concern. "But you can't keep this up, Lauren." She knew he was right. At 3 in the morning, when Emma's colicky cries echoed through the thin walls and angry neighbors pounded in protest, Lauren stared at her pale reflection in the bathroom mirror. Dark circles hung beneath her eyes like bruises. Her once shiny chestnut hair hung limp and unwashed. The woman who had once accompanied William Harrison to medical galas was unrecognizable. "You need to sleep," she whispered to herself, splashing cold water on her face. But sleep remained elusive. Instead, Lauren would balance Ethan against her shoulder while rocking Emma's portable bassinet with her foot, using her free hand to type furiously on her laptop. Weekends brought a different kind of exhaustion as she took on freelance data entry projects, the twins sleeping fitfully beside her. During those pre-dawn hours, Lauren began formulating a plan. She'd started studying biotechnology journals and pharmaceutical reports, information she'd absorbed through osmosis during her relationship with William. There was a gap in the market for more efficient drug testing methods. While major pharmaceuticals spent billions on failed trials, smaller companies couldn't afford comprehensive testing at all. 3 jobs isn't sustainable, she murmured to Emma one night as the baby finally drifted to sleep. "We need something better." Lauren's dental clinic paycheck barely covered rent. The diner's unpredictable tips went for formula, diapers, and utilities. Her weekend data entry work paid for the second-hand clothes and baby supplies she found at thrift stores. After expenses, she was lucky to have $20 left each month. By March, when the twins were 10 months old, Lauren's feet had developed permanent calluses from standing 12-hour shifts. One particularly busy Friday at the diner, she balanced 4 plates along her arm while delivering orders to a table of businessmen. "Careful there, sweetheart," one man said, eyeing her with amusement as she nearly lost her balance. "You look dead on your feet." "I'm fine, thank you," Lauren replied mechanically, the practiced smile never reaching her eyes. As she turned to leave, she heard another man at the table whisper, "Single mothers always look exhausted. Makes you wonder why they make such poor life choices." Lauren's hand tightened around her order pad. Poor life choices. As if loving the wrong man was a failing deserving of punishment. As if creating life was something to regret. Later that night, after the last customer had left and she'd counted her meager tips, Lauren pushed the twins' stroller through the April rain toward their apartment. Both babies were asleep, unaware of the water seeping through their mother's worn coat. Lauren had given up her umbrella to shield the stroller. She was halfway home when her cell phone rang. Her parents hadn't called in months, not since she'd sent them photos of the newborn twins. Their disappointment in her situation had evolved into a chilly distance maintained through occasional text messages. "Hello?" she answered, huddling beneath a store awning for shelter. "Lauren?" Her mother's voice sounded strange. "Your father had a heart attack this afternoon." The world seemed to tilt sideways. "Is he?" "He's stable, but he's asking for you. For all of you." 3 days later, Lauren sat in a hospital room in Dayton, Ohio, the twins dressed in the nicest outfits she could afford, second-hand but clean and pressed. Her father looked smaller somehow, diminished by tubes and monitors. "They're beautiful," he whispered, reaching a weathered hand to touch Emma's cheek. "I'm sorry we weren't there for you, Lori." The reconciliation was tentative but real. Her parents offered to help her move back to Ohio to provide childcare while she found a job. A lifeline Lauren desperately needed. "I can't," she said finally, surprising herself. "I have a plan in Boston, something I need to build." Her father nodded slowly, a hint of pride in his tired eyes. "You always were the stubborn one." When Lauren returned to Boston, she approached her routine with renewed determination. During her shifts at the dental clinic, she began taking note of the practice's business operations, studying their billing systems and client management. At the diner, she observed how Sal maximized efficiency with limited resources. Each experience became a lesson she stored away. By the twins' first birthday in May, Lauren had drafted a business plan for a biotechnology startup focused on developing more efficient drug testing protocols. The irony wasn't lost on her. William's influence had provided the seed for her future reinvention. The man who had discarded her as insignificant had unwittingly given her the knowledge that might someday elevate her beyond his reach. "Happy birthday, my loves," Lauren whispered as she placed a single cupcake with a candle between the twins' high chairs, secondhand, like everything else they owned. Ethan grabbed for the flame while Emma studied it with intense blue eyes that reminded Lauren painfully of William. That night, after the twins were asleep, Lauren sat cross-legged on her bed, surrounded by printouts of grant applications and small business loans. Her eyes burned from exhaustion, but her mind raced with possibilities. If she could secure even a small amount of funding, she could begin building something real, something that would provide a better life for her children. By the following winter, when the twins were 18 months old, Lauren had refined her business plan through countless late-night revisions. She'd also begun networking, cautiously at first, with other young professionals in the biotech sector. A woman she'd served repeatedly at the diner turned out to be a lab technician at a pharmaceutical company. A patient at the dental clinic worked in venture capital specializing in medical startups. Small connections began to form, threads of possibility woven together by Lauren's relentless determination. In February, she applied for a special loan program designed for single mothers starting businesses. The application process was grueling. Multiple interviews, background checks, and a panel presentation where Lauren, in her one decent outfit, purchased from a consignment shop, pitched her vision to 5 skeptical investors. "Your credentials are limited, Ms. Mitchell," one panelist noted, peering at her over reading glasses. "No advanced degree, no laboratory experience." "No official credentials," Lauren corrected politely. "But I've spent the past 2 years studying biotechnology independently while working 3 jobs and raising twins alone. What I lack in formal education, I make up for in determination and innovative thinking." The panel exchanged glances. Another member leaned forward. "And these testing protocols you're proposing, you're certain they're viable?" "I've verified the approach with 2 independent researchers who've reviewed my methodology," Lauren replied, fighting to keep her voice steady. "The process could reduce early-stage testing costs by up to 40% while improving accuracy by 15%. The questions continued for nearly an hour, each one designed to expose weakness in her plan. Lauren answered with calm precision, drawing on knowledge accumulated through countless hours of study stolen between work shifts and childcare. When the interview ended, Lauren collected her presentation materials with hands that trembled slightly from adrenaline. She had given everything she had. Now, she could only wait. 3 weeks later, Lauren was changing the twins in their room when her phone rang. She fumbled to answer it while preventing Ethan from rolling off the changing table. "Ms. Mitchell, this is Margaret Winters from the Women's Business Initiative. I'm calling about your loan application." Lauren held her breath, securing Ethan's diaper with one hand. "Yes? The committee has approved your request for $50,000 in startup funding." The room seemed to spin. "50,000?" Lauren repeated, certain she'd misheard. "It's your chance, Ms. Mitchell," Margaret said, her voice warming. "Don't waste it." That weekend, Lauren pushed the twins' stroller through Cambridge, studying available commercial spaces. Most were far beyond her means, but a small, neglected storefront near Kendall Square caught her eye. The "For Lease" sign was faded, the windows dusty with neglect. "This is it," she told the twins, who stared up at her with uncomprehending eyes. "This is where we start." The space needed everything: cleaning, painting, basic laboratory equipment, office furniture. Lauren signed the lease with the first installment of her loan and spent every free moment transforming the neglected storefront. Weekends became painting parties where she balanced Ethan on one hip while brushing primer on the walls. Evenings after diner shifts were dedicated to assembling second-hand furniture purchased from university surplus sales. By June, Lauren had resigned from the dental clinic to focus on her fledgling company. She kept the diner job for evening shifts, arranging childcare with another waitress who worked mornings. The data entry work continued on weekends, providing essential supplemental income while the business got off the ground. Her first employee came unexpectedly. Dr. Eleanor Winters, a retired research scientist in her late 60s, arrived at the newly painted storefront one afternoon, examining the modest sign, "Mitchell Biotechnology." "My daughter Margaret told me about your loan application," she explained, peering around the sparsely equipped space where the twins played in a portable playpen. "Why should I work for a single mother with no scientific credentials?" Lauren straightened her shoulders. "Because I have ideas worth pursuing and the determination to make them reality." Eleanor's eyebrows rose skeptically. "Show me." Lauren retrieved her notebook, opening to pages of detailed protocols and formulas. As Eleanor flipped through the notes, her expression shifted from doubt to grudging interest. "These are surprisingly sound," she admitted. "Where did you learn this?" "I listened," Lauren said simply. "For years I listened to doctors and researchers discuss their work. Then I spent 2 years studying independently while working multiple jobs." When Lauren signed the first paycheck for Dr. Eleanor Winters, part-time scientific consultant, she felt a surge of pride unlike anything she'd experienced before. From the makeshift playpen in the corner of the small laboratory, Ethan and Emma watched their mother with wide blue eyes, unaware they were witnessing the first tentative steps of what would someday become an empire. When she signed her first contract of $75,000, Lauren didn't know she was taking the first step on a ladder that would lead her to a penthouse office in a skyscraper, from where she would one day watch William Harrison enter her building, seeking a second chance. The $50,000 loan transformed more than just an empty storefront. It changed Lauren's entire world. Her first order of business was purchasing essential laboratory equipment, most of it second-hand from university surplus sales or labs that had upgraded. Every penny was stretched, repurposed, made to work harder. The twins, now approaching their second birthday, had a dedicated corner in the lab with a playpen surrounded by educational toys donated by Eleanor's grandchildren. Lauren's nights had become an exercise in efficiency and endurance. After tucking the twins into bed in the small apartment they'd upgraded to, still in Somerville but with an actual bedroom now, she would work until 2 or 3 in the morning, researching, planning, drafting proposals. Sleep was a luxury she allowed herself only in 4-hour increments. "You can't sustain this," Eleanor warned one morning, finding Lauren asleep at her desk, Ethan playing with her hair while Emma methodically stacked plastic cups beside her. "The human body requires rest, even yours." Lauren straightened, blinking away exhaustion. "I'll rest when we're stable. The twins need security." Eleanor's concern wasn't misplaced. Lauren's schedule was punishing. Mornings in the lab with Eleanor, developing their testing protocols, afternoons meeting potential clients or writing grant applications, evenings at Sal's diner, still keeping her waitressing job as financial insurance, late nights handling paperwork and research, and through it all, caring for active toddlers who seemed to require less sleep than normal children. The twins were showing signs of extraordinary development. At 20 months, both could speak in complete sentences. Ethan had a fascination with shapes and patterns, organizing his blocks by complex systems that changed daily. Emma, quieter but equally observant, had already memorized the alphabet and could identify basic scientific equipment in the lab. "Microscope," she would say, pointing with a tiny finger. "Centrifuge. Pipette." On a particularly exhausting Tuesday in November, Lauren cradled her phone against her shoulder while preparing breakfast for the twins, listening to a potential client explain why they couldn't meet her proposed pricing. "I understand your concerns," she said, simultaneously preventing Ethan from pouring his juice into Emma's cereal. "But our methodology will save you approximately 30% on preliminary testing costs. The investment pays for itself within—" She was interrupted by Ethan's bowl crashing to the floor. Milk and cereal spread across the linoleum as he burst into tears. "I'm so sorry," Lauren said into the phone. "Could you hold for just a moment?" She muted the call, quickly cleaned the mess, soothed Ethan, and returned to the conversation with barely a pause. "As I was saying, the investment pays for itself within the first phase of testing." This was her life now. Constant interruptions, perpetual multitasking, and an unwavering determination that powered her through days that would have broken someone less motivated. By December, Mitchell Biotechnology had secured 3 small contracts with local pharmaceutical startups. The income was modest but promising. Lauren was able to reduce her hours at the diner to weekends only, giving her more time in the lab. She hired a part-time assistant, a graduate student named Michael, who needed flexible hours to complete his studies. On Christmas Eve, Lauren sat cross-legged on the floor of their apartment, watching the twins examine their presents. Mostly educational toys purchased on clearance months earlier and wrapped in paper from the previous year. Their delight was undiminished by the modest offerings. "Look, Mama!" Emma exclaimed, holding up a picture book about famous scientists. "Ladies doing science like you!" Lauren's throat tightened. "That's right, sweetheart. Ladies doing science just like we do." Later that night, after the twins were asleep, Lauren allowed herself a rare glass of wine and pulled out her notebook. The page was divided into columns: goals achieved and goals pending. She made a checkmark next to "secure first 3 clients" and smiled faintly. The list of pending goals was much longer: expand client base, develop proprietary testing protocols, secure additional funding, publish preliminary findings, move to larger facility. Each item represented a step toward the future she envisioned, one where her children would never want for anything, where they would never know the desperation she had experienced. January brought both opportunity and crisis. A small pharmaceutical company expressed interest in Mitchell Biotechnology's testing methods, potentially their largest contract yet. The same week, Emma developed a high fever that required a midnight emergency room visit. Lauren paced the hospital corridor, Ethan asleep in a stroller while doctors examined Emma. Her phone buzzed repeatedly with messages from the potential client, questions she needed to answer to secure the contract. "Ms. Mitchell?" The doctor emerged from the examination room. "Emma's going to be fine. It's just an ear infection. We're prescribing antibiotics." Relief washed over Lauren, followed immediately by guilt. She'd been answering emails while her daughter was being examined, dividing her attention even in crisis. That night, watching both twins sleep in their small bedroom, Emma's fever finally broken, Lauren made a decision. She needed help, real help, not just the patchwork childcare arrangements she'd been using. The next day, she approached Eleanor. "I'd like to create a workspace where the twins can be with us," she explained. "A safe area in the lab where they can play and learn while we work." Eleanor considered this. "An unconventional approach." "Everything about this company is unconventional," Lauren replied. "Why stop now?" By February, a corner of the lab had been transformed into a miniature learning center, complete with educational materials, a small desk, and child-sized lab coats that delighted the twins. Lauren arranged her schedule to maximize time with them, integrating them into her workday rather than segregating her roles as mother and entrepreneur. The approach raised eyebrows with some clients who visited the lab, but Lauren refused to apologize or hide her children. "They're the reason Mitchell Biotechnology exists," she told a skeptical investor. "They should be part of its growth." Spring brought unexpected success. Their testing method for a small cancer drug proved remarkably efficient, saving the clients substantial time and resources. Word spread through the tight-knit biotech community, bringing new inquiries and potential contracts. Lauren was nursing a cup of coffee one morning, reviewing data while the twins drew pictures at their small desk, when Eleanor burst through the door, waving a scientific journal. "They've published the Hansen study," she announced. "Their methodology is nearly identical to what we've been developing, but their results are flawed. We can do better." Lauren scanned the article, excitement building. "This is our opening. If we can demonstrate superior results using our approach, we could establish Mitchell Biotechnology as a significant player in the field," Eleanor finished. For the next month, they worked tirelessly, refining their protocols and preparing a comprehensive comparison study. The twins absorbed the energy of the lab, playing scientist with plastic beakers and colored water, mimicking the focused intensity of the adults. On Emma's and Ethan's third birthday, Lauren splurged on a small celebration at the lab. Eleanor brought cupcakes, and Michael decorated with balloons. In the middle of the modest party, Lauren's phone rang. The results from their comparative study had been accepted for publication in a respected journal. "We did it," she told Eleanor, tears threatening. "Our first published research." Eleanor smiled, patting her hand. "You did it. I merely assisted." Summer saw Mitchell Biotechnology growing steadily. Lauren was able to finally quit her weekend job at the diner, devoting herself fully to the company. She hired 2 more part-time researchers, recent graduates eager for experience. The lab space, once cavernous and empty, now hummed with activity. The twins continued to develop at an extraordinary pace. At 3, they were already learning basic reading skills. Ethan displayed an uncanny ability with numbers, while Emma showed remarkable observational skills, often noticing patterns in data that the adults overlooked. One afternoon, while reviewing results from a test batch, Emma pointed to a sequence of numbers on Lauren's computer screen. "Those don't match, Mama," she said simply. Lauren examined the data more closely and realized Emma had identified an inconsistency that could have compromised their results. "You're right, sweetheart. How did you see that?" Emma shrugged. "It looked wrong." News of the incident spread through the lab, becoming part of company lore. How a 3-year-old had potentially saved weeks of research. Lauren began involving the twins more deliberately in the work, explaining complex concepts in simple terms, surprised by how much they comprehended. By fall, Mitchell Biotechnology had outgrown its original space. With 7 contracts now providing steady income, Lauren began searching for larger facilities. She found a promising location closer to Kendall Square, with twice the square footage and a small private office that could serve as a dedicated space for the twins. The day Lauren signed the lease on the new space, she brought the twins with her. As they explored the empty rooms, their voices echoing against bare walls, she felt a swell of pride unlike anything she'd experienced before. "This is our new lab," she told them. And one day, it will be even bigger. Ethan looked up at her with those piercing blue eyes, William's eyes, and asked, "How big, Mama?" Lauren smiled. "As big as we can dream it." That night, as the twins slept in their beds, real beds now, not second-hand cribs, Lauren sat at her kitchen table updating her business plan. The company had come so far in just over a year, exceeding even her optimistic projections. But she wanted more, needed more, to secure the future her children deserved. The next milestone came unexpectedly. A pharmaceutical company in California had been using Mitchell Biotechnology's testing protocols for a promising cancer treatment. Their preliminary results were so positive that they contacted Lauren directly. "We'd like to discuss potential partnership opportunities," the research director explained over the phone. "Your methodology has saved us months of development time. We're interested in exclusive rights." The offer was substantial. $75,000 for exclusive licensing of the testing protocol. Lauren negotiated carefully, securing not just the licensing fee but also a percentage of any resulting products. When she signed the contract, Lauren felt a sense of validation that transcended the financial gain. She was building something real, something valuable. The check for $75,000 represented more than money. It was proof that her vision had merit, that her sacrifices were justified. When she signed her first contract of $75,000, Lauren didn't know she was taking the first step on a ladder that would lead her to a penthouse office in a skyscraper, from where she would one day watch William Harrison enter her building, seeking a second chance. The pharmaceutical company's check felt substantial in Lauren's hands. $75,000 for the testing methodology she had developed in that tiny, converted storefront laboratory. As she deposited it the next morning, the bank teller raised her eyebrows, clearly surprised to see such a sum coming through the account of a young woman in well-worn clothes with twins in tow. "Business is good?" the teller asked, processing the deposit. Lauren nodded, a small smile playing at her lips. "Getting better every day." By early summer of 2014, that statement had become undeniably true. Mitchell Biotechnology's initial testing protocols had proven remarkably effective, saving the California pharmaceutical client millions in development costs for their new cancer treatment. The success had generated buzz within the industry, bringing new inquiries from companies that would have ignored Lauren completely just months earlier. "They're calling us now," Lauren told Eleanor one morning, reviewing the growing list of potential clients, not the other way around. Eleanor, who had become both mentor and surrogate grandmother to the twins, adjusted her reading glasses. "Success has a way of changing perspectives. Just be careful not to grow too quickly." The warning was prudent. Lauren had seen too many promising startups implode from expanding too rapidly. Her approach remained methodical. Each new contract carefully vetted, each new expense justified. The twins, now 3 years old, continued to accompany her to the lab daily, their extraordinary development a source of constant amazement to the growing staff. On a bright Tuesday in July, Lauren was reviewing data when Ethan tugged at her lab coat. "Mama, Emma made the numbers talk." Lauren followed him to the twins' corner where Emma sat before an old laptop Lauren had refurbished for their educational games. Instead of playing the alphabet program, Emma had somehow opened a spreadsheet of test results and was systematically reorganizing the data. "It's prettier this way," Emma explained, pointing to her color-coded reorganization. "The green numbers like being together." Lauren stared at the screen, realizing that her 3-year-old daughter had intuitively grouped related test outcomes in a way that revealed a pattern the research team had missed. That evening, after the twins were asleep, Lauren modified their testing protocol based on Emma's innocent observation, improving accuracy by an additional 11%. By autumn, Mitchell Biotechnology had expanded to a team of 8, still modest, but far from the one-woman operation of just 2 years earlier. The Cambridge lab space, once cavernous for their small operation, now felt increasingly cramped. Lauren began searching for larger facilities, her eyes set on expansion. The twins started preschool that September, attending mornings only before Lauren would pick them up to spend afternoons at the lab. Their teachers quickly noted their exceptional abilities, suggesting advanced educational options that Lauren carefully considered. "They're testing at a 6-year-old level already," the preschool director explained during a parent conference. "Have you considered the gifted program at Brookline Academy?" Lauren had considered it, and many other educational opportunities, but the tuition remained far beyond her means, despite the company's growing success. "We're exploring all options," she replied diplomatically, making a mental note to add Premium Education Fund to her long-term financial goals. October brought a pivotal opportunity when Lauren was invited to present Mitchell Biotechnology's testing methodology at a regional biotech conference. She spent weeks preparing, practicing her presentation during the twins' nap times and refining slides late into the night. The morning of the conference, Lauren dressed in her best outfit, a navy suit purchased from a consignment shop but tailored to fit perfectly. She arranged for Eleanor to watch the twins and took a cab to the downtown hotel hosting the event, her presentation materials meticulously organized in a leather portfolio that represented one of her few professional splurges. The conference room buzzed with industry leaders, most in designer suits with polished credentials and prestigious affiliations. Lauren straightened her shoulders and walked confidently to the registration desk. "I'm here to check in for my presentation," she explained to the attendant. The young man glanced up briefly. "Name of your supervisor?" "I don't have a supervisor. I'm Lauren Mitchell, founder and CEO of Mitchell Biotechnology. I'm presenting in session 3. His skeptical look spoke volumes, but he checked his list and reluctantly handed over her badge. "Breakout room C, down the hall to the right." Lauren navigated through groups of older men engaged in animated conversation, noticing how they automatically shifted to block her path, assuming she was someone's assistant rather than a peer. When she took her place at the presenter's table, the 2 men already seated barely acknowledged her. As the room filled, a gray-haired executive settled into the chair beside her, glancing at her presentation materials. "First conference, sweetheart?" he asked condescendingly. "Don't worry, the audience is usually pretty forgiving for newcomers." Before Lauren could respond, another man joined them, clapping the executive on the shoulder. "Ted, didn't know you were speaking today." "I'm not," Ted laughed, "just offering some encouragement to the young lady here. She looks nervous." The newcomer didn't even glance at Lauren. "Hey, honey, could you grab coffee for us while the adults talk? Black for me, cream, and 2 sugars for Ted." Lauren felt heat rise to her face, but years of customer service had taught her to maintain composure under insult. "I'm not the catering staff," she replied evenly. "I'm Lauren Mitchell, CEO of Mitchell Biotechnology, presenting on novel efficiency protocols in pharmacological testing." She extended her hand professionally. "And I prefer my coffee with just a splash of milk, thank you." The men exchanged embarrassed glances as the moderator called the session to order. When Lauren's turn came to present, she approached the podium with the confidence of someone who had faced far worse than professional skepticism. Her presentation was concise, data-driven, and compelling. By the 3rd slide, the audience's murmurs had died down, replaced by attentive silence. By the conclusion, several attendees were taking detailed notes, and the Q&A session yielded thoughtful inquiries rather than challenges to her credibility. "That was surprisingly impressive," Ted admitted afterward, his condescension replaced by grudging respect. "Where did you say your lab is located?" "In Cambridge," Lauren replied. "Though we're expanding soon, our current contracts have us operating at capacity." "Contracts with whom, if you don't mind my asking?" Lauren named several clients, including the California pharmaceutical company whose cancer drug was showing promising results in early trials. Ted's eyebrows shot up in recognition. "That's Hamilton Pharmaceuticals. They're notoriously selective about research partners." "They're selecting us now," Lauren replied with a small smile. The conference proved to be a turning point. 3 new client inquiries came within the week, and a local business journal requested an interview about emerging players in the biotech scene. Lauren carefully balanced the increased professional demands with her commitment to the twins, still bringing them to the lab each afternoon, still reading them bedtime stories no matter how many emails awaited response. In November, Lauren scheduled a meeting with a potential investor, the first time she'd considered accepting outside funding. The prospect both excited and concerned her. Additional capital would accelerate growth, but outside investment meant surrendering some control. The meeting took place at an upscale restaurant in Boston's financial district. Richard Dawson, the investor, was in his 50s, impeccably dressed, with the confident demeanor of someone accustomed to having his opinions respected. "Your company shows remarkable promise," Dawson acknowledged after reviewing her business plan, "especially given your unusual background." Lauren had heard enough patronizing comments to recognize the subtext. "My background has given me a unique perspective on efficiency and innovation," she replied smoothly. "No doubt," Dawson agreed. "However, to attract serious investment, you'll need to consider structural changes." He leaned forward. "You need a man with credentials to be the face of the company. Someone with a PhD, preferably from a name-brand institution. You could be the creative director." Lauren set down her water glass carefully. "Mr. Dawson, Mitchell Biotechnology is 100% mine, and it will remain that way. I'm not looking for a figurehead. I'm looking for capital to expand operations while maintaining control." "That's admirable but naive," Dawson countered. "No serious investor will pour money into a company led by a, forgive me, single mother with no scientific credentials." "Then I'll find unserious investors," Lauren replied, rising from her seat. "Or continue growing organically. Thank you for your time, Mr. Dawson." As she walked away, Dawson called after her. "You're making a mistake, Ms. Mitchell. You need me more than I need you." Lauren turned back briefly. "My company will remain 100% mine, and one day you'll regret this conversation." December brought the breakthrough they'd been working toward for months. Late one night, after the twins were asleep, Lauren and her research team identified a novel approach to predicting adverse reactions in experimental compounds, a method that could potentially eliminate months of expensive testing while significantly improving safety profiles. "This isn't just an improvement on existing methods," Eleanor said, reviewing the preliminary data. "This is revolutionary. We need to patent this immediately." The patent application process was expensive and complex, consuming much of the company's available capital. Lauren worked with a boutique law firm specializing in biotech intellectual property, paying their retainer in installments negotiated around the company's cash flow. By early 2015, with the twins approaching their 4th birthday, the patent was pending and Mitchell Biotechnology had moved to larger facilities, a proper laboratory and office space still in Cambridge, but closer to the heart of the biotech corridor. Lauren had expanded the team to 12 employees, including 3 PhD researchers who respected her vision and practical knowledge despite her lack of formal scientific credentials. The first substantial offer for their patented methodology came in March, $2 million for exclusive rights from a major pharmaceutical company. Lauren reviewed the offer with her team and legal advisors, weighing the immediate financial windfall against the long-term potential of maintaining ownership. After careful consideration, Lauren accepted the offer with specific limitations on exclusivity, ensuring Mitchell Biotechnology could continue developing the technology for other applications. The $2 million payment would transform the company, allowing for expanded research, better equipment, and, most significantly, a move to New York, where opportunities for growth were exponentially greater. The day the contract was finalized, Lauren took the twins to the window of her office, pointing toward the Boston skyline glittering in the afternoon sun. "See that, loves? We're going somewhere even bigger soon. New York City." "Will our new lab be bigger too?" Ethan asked, pressing his small hand against the glass. "Much bigger," Lauren promised, "with special rooms just for you two to learn and grow." Later that evening, As the twins slept in their beds, nice beds now, in a comfortable apartment she had recently leased, Lauren stood by the window, looking toward Manhattan across the invisible distance. William's cruel dismissal of her potential had fueled every late night, every sacrifice, every moment of doubt overcome by sheer determination. Signing the patent contract for $2 million, Lauren felt a shiver run down her spine. She was only 5 years away from confronting William Harrison at an event that would forever change the power balance between them. The New York skyline glittered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Mitchell Biotechnology boardroom. Lauren sat at the head of the polished mahogany table, watching her team present quarterly projections with a sense of surreal detachment. 3 years ago, she had been stretching pennies to buy formula. Now she was approving million-dollar research budgets. "And that concludes our financial overview," said Marcus, her newly hired CFO. "Any questions, Ms. Mitchell?" Lauren refocused her attention, aware that everyone was waiting for her response. "Yes, I'd like to increase the R&D allocation by 15%. The preliminary work on pediatric applications shows promise." The meeting continued with the efficient rhythm that had become standard at Mitchell Biotech. Lauren had assembled a team of 30 scientists, administrators, and support staff, each carefully selected not just for their qualifications, but for their belief in her vision. The company now occupied an entire floor in a sleek building near the Hudson River, with state-of-the-art laboratories and a corporate culture that still maintained the family-oriented approach Lauren had established from the beginning. When the meeting adjourned, Lauren returned to her office, a corner space with views of the river and the city. On her desk, amid reports and contracts, sat a small framed photograph of the twins as newborns, swaddled in hospital blankets. The contrast between that desperate beginning and her current reality sometimes left her breathless. Her intercom buzzed. "Ms. Mitchell? The school is on line 1. Lauren's stomach tightened as she answered. "This is Lauren Mitchell." "Ms. Mitchell, this is Headmaster Pierce from Cambridge Academy. Ethan is running a fever of 101. School policy requires—" "I'll be there in 20 minutes, Lauren interrupted, already gathering her things. She notified her assistant, rescheduled her afternoon meetings, and was in a taxi within 5 minutes. The exclusive private school had been one of Lauren's first major investments after the move to New York, a 7-figure commitment to her children's future. At 7 years old, the twins were already academically years ahead of their peers, placed in a program for profoundly gifted children. As the taxi navigated through midtown traffic, Lauren's phone lit up with notifications, investors expecting responses, researchers awaiting approvals, a potential acquisition target requesting a meeting. The constant pull between motherhood and corporate leadership created a tension that never fully dissipated. She arrived at the school, a stately building on the Upper East Side, and was escorted to the nurse's office where Ethan lay on a cot, his face flushed with fever. "Mama," he said weakly, "I tried to tell them I could stay for math. We're starting differential equations." Lauren brushed his hair from his forehead. "Math will still be there when you're feeling better, sweetheart." She turned to the nurse. "Where's Emma?" "In class. She insisted on finishing her science project." The nurse hesitated. "Should we call her down as well?" Lauren checked her watch, calculating. She had a video conference with Japanese investors in 90 minutes, unmovable due to the time difference. Her assistant could pick up Emma later, but the thought of missing another school event made her chest ache. "No," Lauren decided. "I'll take Ethan home and send my assistant for Emma after school." The practical solution, if not the emotionally satisfying one. Back at their Upper East Side apartment, a far cry from the Somerville room they'd once shared, Lauren settled Ethan on the sofa and set up her laptop on the coffee table. He dozed while she prepared for her conference call, periodically checking his temperature and adjusting the cool cloth on his forehead. At 7, Emma returned home with Lauren's assistant, proudly carrying a science project that had earned top marks. "Look, Mom, Mr. Abernathy said my hypothesis on cellular regeneration was remarkably sophisticated." Lauren examined the intricate display, genuinely impressed. "This is excellent work, Em. Tell me about your methodology." As Emma enthusiastically explained her project, Lauren noticed Ethan watching from the sofa, his eyes bright with fever but attentive. These moments, witnessing her children's brilliance unfold, were what made the relentless pace worthwhile. After dinner, delivered from their favorite organic restaurant, Lauren sat at the kitchen table reviewing the twins' schoolwork. Emma's science assignments showed an intuitive understanding of biological processes that sometimes startled even Lauren. Ethan's mathematics workbooks contained problems far beyond elementary school level, completed with a precision that reflected his methodical mind. "You've both done exceptional work this week," Lauren said, making notes in their assignments as she did every evening. It was a ritual she maintained no matter how exhausting her day, reviewing their progress, encouraging their interests, remaining engaged with their education. Later, after the twins were in bed, Lauren followed her other nightly ritual. 4 hours of sleep, precisely timed. She set her alarm for 2 in the morning, when she would rise to handle international correspondence and review research data before the twins woke at 6:30. The schedule was punishing, but it allowed her to be present for morning breakfast and school preparation, moments she refused to sacrifice. When her alarm sounded in the darkness, Lauren rose automatically, moving to her home office without disturbing the quiet apartment. She worked steadily until dawn, answering emails from European partners, reviewing patent applications, and refining proposals for new research initiatives. As sunrise painted the Manhattan skyline gold, Lauren prepared breakfast, another ritual she maintained from their early days in Boston. The twins appeared at precisely 6:30, dressed in their school uniforms, discussing a book they'd both been reading about quantum physics. "Mom, is it true that observation changes reality at the quantum level?" Ethan asked, spooning yogurt into his mouth. "That's a simplified explanation of quantum uncertainty," Lauren replied, pouring coffee into her travel mug. "The relationship between observation and measurement is more complex. Like how your cancer medicines work differently when they're watched by different cells?" Emma suggested, making a connection that momentarily stunned Lauren. "That's actually an interesting analogy," Lauren said, making a mental note to explore the concept further. The twins' observations often sparked research directions her trained scientists missed, their uninhibited thinking unbound by conventional limitations. The school presentation that afternoon was scheduled for 2 o'clock, directly conflicting with Lauren's meeting with potential investors. She rearranged her schedule, delegated the investor meeting to Marcus, and arrived at the school 15 minutes early, determined not to miss Ethan's mathematics presentation. But an emergency call from the laboratory changed everything. A critical test batch had shown unexpected results, potentially groundbreaking, potentially disastrous. The lead researcher needed immediate direction. Lauren stood in the school hallway, phone pressed to her ear, watching parents file into the auditorium. The choice tore at her. Her son's moment of pride versus a decision that could affect her company's future and, by extension, her children's security. "I'll be there in 30 minutes, she told the researcher, ending the call as the final bell rang. She slipped into the auditorium as Ethan's class was being introduced, taking a seat in the back row. His presentation was brilliant, explaining complex mathematical concepts with a clarity that impressed even the mathematics teacher. Lauren recorded it on her phone, her chest tight with contradictory emotions, pride in his achievement and guilt for her imminent departure. When the applause ended, she slipped out before Ethan could see her, leaving a note with his teacher explaining her absence. In the taxi to the laboratory, Lauren wiped away a single tear, hardening her resolve. Every sacrifice served a purpose, building something that would secure their future. The laboratory crisis consumed the rest of the day and much of the evening. When Lauren finally returned home, the twins were already in bed, a plate of dinner waiting in the microwave. A thoughtful gesture from their nanny that somehow made Lauren feel worse. She checked on them as she always did, standing in the doorway of their shared bedroom. In sleep, Their faces lost the precocious maturity that sometimes made her forget they were just children. Brilliant, extraordinary children, but children nonetheless. The following morning brought a revelation that would change Mitchell Biotechnology's trajectory. Over breakfast, the twins were discussing a classmate who had missed school for chemotherapy treatments. "Michael lost all his hair," Ethan explained solemnly, "and he's always tired now. The medicine that kills the cancer also kills his good cells," Emma added with the directness of a 7-year-old. "That seems inefficient." Lauren paused, coffee cup halfway to her lips. "What do you mean, Emma?" "Well," Emma continued, arranging her strawberries in a precise pattern, "if you're trying to kill bad cells, why would you make medicine that kills good cells too? That's like using a bomb instead of a sniper." The simplicity of the observation hit Lauren with unexpected force. Mitchell Biotechnology had been focusing on testing methodologies, but what if they shifted toward targeted delivery systems? Medications that could distinguish between healthy and cancerous cells would revolutionize treatment, particularly for children whose developing bodies were especially vulnerable to conventional chemotherapy. "Emma, that's a brilliant observation," Lauren said, her mind already racing with possibilities. That afternoon, Lauren called an emergency board meeting. Standing before her executive team, she outlined a bold pivot, redirecting 50% of their resources toward developing a new platform for targeted medication delivery with a specific focus on pediatric oncology. "This is a radical departure from our established business model," Marcus objected. "Our investors expect us to expand our testing services, not venture into unproven therapeutic development." "Our investors expect growth and innovation," Lauren countered. "This direction offers both, along with something equally valuable: purpose." The resistance was immediate and vocal. "This is philanthropy, not business," argued her head of operations. "You're letting personal sentiment cloud your judgment." Lauren's response was measured but firm. "I'm identifying an underserved market with enormous potential. Children suffering through treatments that ravage their bodies represent both a moral imperative and a business opportunity. We can do well by doing good." The debate continued for hours, but Lauren's position remained unshakable. By meeting's end, she had secured reluctant approval for her new direction, though several board members registered formal concerns. The following weekend, Lauren took the twins to visit the pediatric oncology ward at Memorial Sloan Kettering. As part of the school's community service program, they had volunteered to read stories to young patients. Lauren watched as her children sat beside beds occupied by pale, thin children attached to IV lines delivering the toxic cocktails that might save their lives at terrible cost. One mother sat beside her daughter's bed, gently stroking hair that had begun falling out in clumps. Her eyes met Lauren's across the room, the universal recognition between parents, the shared understanding that no child should suffer this way. "We're going to find a better way," Lauren promised quietly, the words meant for herself as much as for the exhausted mother. That night, Lauren adjusted her company's mission statement, adding a commitment to developing kinder cures for pediatric patients. The shift would be challenging, financially risky, and potentially transformative, both for the company and for countless children fighting diseases with treatments almost as devastating as the illnesses themselves. While observing Ethan and Emma sleeping that night, Lauren didn't know that the decision to focus on pediatric oncology would not only save innumerable lives but also create the platform where, in just 6 years, she would face William Harrison as an equal, no, as his superior. Lauren's revelation about targeted drug delivery systems had set Mitchell Biotechnology on an entirely new trajectory. The company's laboratories, once focused primarily on testing methodologies, now hummed with a different energy as researchers pursued what Lauren had named the Precision Platform, a revolutionary approach to delivering cancer medications that would target malignant cells while largely sparing healthy tissue. The shift had been risky, financially and professionally. 2 board members had resigned in protest, and several early investors expressed concern about the dramatic pivot. But Lauren remained steadfast, driven by the faces of children she'd seen in the oncology ward and by a vision that transcended mere profit. By mid-2017, the gamble was beginning to show promise. Early laboratory results demonstrated that their proprietary delivery system could reduce collateral damage to healthy cells by nearly 60% in preliminary tests. Lauren had mortgaged everything on this new direction, working 18-hour days and sleeping in her office when deadlines loomed. On a crisp September morning, Lauren stood in the observation room above the main testing laboratory, watching her team work with methodical precision. Through the glass, she could see the twins, now 9 years old, sitting at a specially designed workstation, Ethan with his notebook filled with calculations, Emma coding on a tablet. Most CEOs don't allow children in their research facilities, noted Dr. James Chen, the brilliant oncologist Lauren had recruited from Memorial Sloan Kettering to lead the medical applications team. Most CEOs aren't single mothers, Lauren replied without taking her eyes off her children. Besides, they contribute more than you might expect. Dr. Chen nodded thoughtfully. Emma's pattern recognition algorithm has already improved our targeting accuracy by 12%, and Ethan's mathematical modeling of drug dispersion rates is, well, it's not normal for a 9-year-old to understand differential equations at that level. Lauren smiled faintly, maternal pride mixing with a deeper satisfaction. The twins had inherited William's intellectual capacity, but applied it with a compassion he had never demonstrated. They spent weekends visiting children in cancer wards, returning with observations that often sparked research breakthroughs more effectively than formal medical consultations. The intercom buzzed, and her assistant's voice filled the observation room. "Ms. Mitchell, the results from the latest animal trials have been uploaded to the secure server. Dr. Patel says they're significant." Lauren's heart quickened. "Tell him I'll be right there." The data exceeded even their optimistic projections. Their delivery platform had reduced systemic toxicity by 78% while maintaining therapeutic efficacy. In practical terms, it meant children receiving chemotherapy might keep their hair, avoid devastating nausea, and sidestep the immunosuppression that made conventional treatment so dangerous. "This is it," Lauren whispered, scanning the results again to ensure she hadn't misunderstood. "This changes everything." The next morning, Lauren called an all-hands meeting in the company's conference room. Standing before her team of 60 researchers, administrators, and support staff, she could barely contain her excitement. "Yesterday, we received confirmation that our precision platform works exactly as theorized," she announced. "The regulatory pathway will be challenging, but we now have irrefutable evidence that we can deliver life-saving medications to pediatric cancer patients without the devastating side effects of conventional chemotherapy." The room erupted in applause and cheers. Many on her team had been skeptical initially, particularly those who had come from traditional pharmaceutical backgrounds where incremental improvements were the norm. Lauren had pushed them to think differently, to imagine breakthroughs rather than mere advances. That evening, Lauren took the twins to dinner at their favorite restaurant, an upscale Italian place that had become their celebration venue. As Ethan methodically deconstructed his lasagna to analyze its layers and Emma arranged her pasta in geometric patterns, Lauren marveled at these extraordinary children who had become not just the reason for her success, but active participants in it. "We have something important to discuss," Lauren said, setting down her fork. "The company is about to enter a new phase. Our technology works, but getting it approved and to market will require partners, clinical trials, and significant capital." Ethan looked up, blue eyes, so like William's in color but warmer in expression, focusing intently. "Are we going to accept venture capital funding? Because the terms typically dilute founding ownership by 20 to 40%. Lauren smiled at her son's precocious understanding of business mechanics. "Actually, we've received an acquisition offer from Pfizer, $1.8 billion. Emma's fork clattered against her plate. "That's a lot of money." "It is," Lauren agreed, It would make us very wealthy, but it would also mean losing control of the Precision platform. Decisions about its application, pricing, availability, all would belong to Pfizer. Would they still focus on helping kids? Ethan asked, cutting to the heart of the matter as he always did. They say they would, Lauren replied carefully, but pediatric applications are a smaller market than adult oncology. Their incentives would naturally push toward the more profitable applications. Emma studied her mother's face. You've already decided to say no, haven't you? Lauren nodded. I wanted to discuss it with you both first, but yes, I believe we can do more good by maintaining control, even if it means a longer, harder path to market. Then it's settled, Ethan said simply, returning to his methodical dissection of lasagna as if billion-dollar decisions were commonplace at the dinner table. 2 weeks later, Lauren sat across from Pfizer's acquisition team in the Mitchell Biotechnology conference room. The lead negotiator, a silver-haired executive with an expensive suit and practiced charm, slid a document across the table. $1.8 billion, he reiterated. Our final offer. It's extraordinarily generous for a company that hasn't yet completed Phase 1 clinical trials. Lauren examined the document briefly before looking up. It's a fair valuation of our current technology, but it doesn't account for the applications we haven't yet announced. The executive frowned slightly. Your pediatric oncology platform is impressive, but I'm referring to our neurological and immunological applications currently in preclinical development. Lauren interrupted smoothly. The Precision platform isn't just for cancer treatments. It's a fundamental reimagining of drug delivery for multiple therapeutic areas. This wasn't entirely accurate. The additional applications were theoretical, barely past the conceptual stage. But Lauren had learned that in negotiations, potential value was sometimes as powerful as proven worth. Even considering those potential applications, our offer is more than fair, the executive insisted. Lauren stood, gathering her materials with unhurried confidence. Then we'll have to respectfully decline. Mitchell Biotechnology isn't for sale at any price. As the Pfizer team left, her CFO approached with visible concern. Lauren, $1.8 billion would have secured the company's future, and yours. Are you certain this is the right decision? Lauren watched the elevator doors close on the departed executives. I didn't build this to sell it, Marcus. I built it to change lives. The summer of 2018 brought the formal establishment of the Ethan and Emma Institute for Medical Innovation, a research center within Mitchell Biotechnology dedicated to pediatric applications of their delivery platform. The institute occupied the top floor of their expanding headquarters, with state-of-the-art laboratories and a glass-walled observation area where young patients could watch science in action. As the company grew, so did media interest. In September, Lauren found herself on the cover of Time magazine beneath the headline, "The Mitchell Revolution: How a Single Mother is Transforming Pediatric Medicine." The article detailed her journey from abandoned pregnant girlfriend to biotech innovator, though Lauren had carefully omitted William's name or any details that might identify him. The past was useful only as fuel. She had no interest in public revenge. The twins, now approaching their 11th birthdays, handled their mother's growing fame with remarkable equilibrium. Their own academic achievements had begun attracting attention. Ethan's mathematical papers were being published in undergraduate journals, while Emma's algorithm for identifying cellular abnormalities had won international recognition. Despite professional success, Lauren struggled with the inevitable compromises of her dual role as CEO and mother. One evening, after missing Emma's science competition due to an emergency board meeting, Lauren found her daughter sitting alone on the balcony of their penthouse apartment. "I'm sorry I couldn't be there," Lauren said, joining Emma on the outdoor sofa. "The live stream showed your presentation. You were brilliant." Emma nodded, acknowledging the compliment without looking up from her tablet. "Sometimes I feel your absence even when you're here, Mom." The observation struck Lauren with unexpected force. She had worked so hard to provide everything for her children: security, opportunity, education. But had she given enough of herself? The question haunted her, a rare uncertainty in her otherwise decisive nature. The following weekend, Lauren took the twins to Somerville, to the neighborhood where they had lived during those desperate early years. The apartment building looked smaller than she remembered, its brick facade weathered and ordinary. "We lived here?" Ethan asked incredulously, staring up at the unremarkable structure. "In one room on the third floor," Lauren confirmed. "You both slept in laundry baskets because I couldn't afford cribs." Emma touched the worn stone steps. "You built everything from here?" "From less than this," Lauren replied softly. "From nothing but determination and the two of you." That night, Lauren dreamt of William for the first time in years. In the dream, he appeared at the Mitchell Biotechnology offices, demanding to see the twins, claiming paternal rights he had rejected before their birth. She woke in a cold sweat, heart racing before realizing it was just a nightmare, a manifestation of her deepest fear that her children might someday be taken from her. The dream lingered, prompting Lauren to finally address a question she had avoided for years. What would she tell the twins about their father? At 11, they were old enough to understand complex truths, and their occasional questions about their paternity had become more direct. One Sunday afternoon, while the three of them worked on a home science project, Emma asked abruptly, "Mom, why don't we have a father like other kids?" Lauren set down the beaker she was holding, meeting her daughter's curious gaze. "You do have a father, biologically. He and I were together before you were born." "Where is he now?" Ethan asked, suddenly alert, his calculator forgotten. "He's a doctor in Boston," Lauren answered truthfully. "When I told him I was pregnant, he decided he wasn't ready for a family. He chose his career instead." "Did he ever want to meet us?" Emma's question was direct, her blue eyes, so like William's, searching Lauren's face. "No, sweetheart. He made his choice very clear." Ethan's expression hardened slightly. "So he abandoned us." "He abandoned the idea of us," Lauren corrected gently. "He never knew the remarkable people you would become." The twins processed this information with the analytical thoroughness they applied to everything. Finally, Emma asked the question Lauren had been dreading. "Would you tell us who he is, if we wanted to know?" Lauren took a deep breath. "Yes, if that's what you truly want." The twins exchanged one of their silent communications, a glance that seemed to contain an entire conversation. Ethan spoke for both of them. "Maybe someday, but not now. We're doing fine without him." Lauren felt a weight lift from her shoulders. They knew the essential truth, and it hadn't shattered them. Their indifference to William was perhaps the most fitting response to his abandonment, not anger or yearning, but the simple recognition that he was unnecessary to their extraordinary lives. In early 2021, Mitchell Biotechnology's precision platform entered Phase 2 clinical trials with remarkable results. Children who had suffered through traditional chemotherapy now received targeted treatments that attacked their cancer cells while leaving healthy tissue largely unaffected. Hair growth returned. Appetites improved. Immune systems remained strong enough to fight secondary infections. As Lauren watched the data accumulate, each chart and graph representing a child spared unnecessary suffering, she felt a profound satisfaction that transcended business success. The road ahead remained challenging. Regulatory approvals, scaling production, ensuring accessibility, but the fundamental breakthrough had been achieved. When Forbes magazine requested an interview about the company's success, Lauren invited the journalist to visit the pediatric oncology ward where several trial participants were receiving treatment. Surrounded by children who were responding to targeted therapies with minimal side effects, Lauren explained the technology in layman's terms, while the twins demonstrated the science with models they had designed specifically for young patients to understand their treatment. The resulting cover story, The Mitchell Dynasty: How a Single Mother Revolutionized American Medicine, catapulted Lauren and the twins into a new level of public recognition. The article detailed their extraordinary journey without mentioning William, focusing instead on how Lauren had transformed personal hardship into medical innovation. While refusing the $1.8 billion, Lauren didn't imagine that, in less than 2 years, she would be face-to-face with William Harrison at the Plaza Hotel, while he contemplated the empire that could have been part of his legacy. January in New York brought a crystalline sky, the kind of brilliant blue that seemed almost artificial against Manhattan's jagged skyline. Lauren Mitchell stood at the window of her private office on the 32nd floor of the Mitchell Biotech Tower, watching her company helicopter approach the rooftop landing pad. Below her, the city sprawled in winter sunlight, streets teeming with people who looked like moving dots from this height. "Ms. Mitchell, Tokyo is waiting on the video conference." Her assistant's voice came through the intercom. Lauren straightened her Armani blazer and turned from the window. "I'll take it in the helicopter. Make sure the secure connection is ready." At 39, Lauren had developed the polished confidence that came from building a $4 billion company from nothing. Her chestnut hair, now expertly highlighted and cut in an elegant bob, framed a face that had graced the covers of Forbes, Time, and Vanity Fair. She moved with purpose toward the elevator that would take her to the helipad, mentally shifting gears from the morning's research briefing to the upcoming investment discussion with Japanese pharmaceutical partners. The contrast between this moment and her life 15 years ago sometimes struck her with physical force. She had been 24 then, pregnant and abandoned, with only $237 to her name. Now she commanded resources that most people couldn't imagine, all built from the crucible of that abandonment. When the elevator doors opened to the rooftop, Lauren stepped out into the January wind, ducking slightly as she approached the waiting helicopter. Inside, her mobile command center was already prepared, screens displaying market data, research metrics, and the waiting video call. "Hayashi-san, thank you for your patience," Lauren greeted as the connection stabilized, the helicopter lifting off even as she began discussing potential expansion into Asian markets. 20 minutes later, as they descended toward a private landing pad near her children's school, Lauren had secured preliminary approval for a $50 million research partnership. She ended the call just as the helicopter touched down, gathering her tablet and briefcase. "The car is waiting, Ms. Mitchell," the pilot informed her. "Mr. and Ms. Mitchell are expecting you." Lauren checked her watch, a discreet Patek Philippe that had been a gift to herself when Mitchell Biotech had reached its first billion in valuation. She was precisely on schedule to meet the twins for their lunch, a standing weekly appointment she refused to break regardless of business demands. The black Tesla waited at the curb, her driver holding the door as Lauren approached. "Good afternoon, Ms. Mitchell. Straight to 11 Madison Park?" "Yes, thank you, David," Lauren replied, sliding into the back seat. She used the brief drive to review notifications on her tablet, research updates, market analyses, press inquiries. A message from the Plaza Hotel confirmed final arrangements for the upcoming Gala of Medical Innovation, where she would receive the Innovator of the Year award. The restaurant, with its soaring ceilings and views of Madison Square Park, was already busy with the lunch crowd when Lauren arrived. The maitre d' immediately recognized her, leading her to a corner table where the twins were already seated. "Mom!" Emma called, looking up from her tablet. At 14, she had blossomed into a striking young woman, her dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, those distinctive blue eyes, William's eyes, framed by stylish glasses that gave her an intellectual air. Ethan stood as Lauren approached, now nearly a head taller than his mother at 6 feet. His lanky frame had begun filling out, his features sharpening into a face that sometimes gave Lauren a jolt of recognition. Echoes of William in the strong jawline and those same penetrating blue eyes. "You're exactly on time," Ethan noted, checking his watch with characteristic precision. "The Japanese investors must have said yes." Lauren smiled, kissing each of them on the cheek before taking her seat. "How did you know I was speaking with Japanese investors?" "Your calendar was synced to the home system," Emma explained. Plus, you're wearing your lucky earrings, the ones you only wear for major negotiations. Lauren touched the pearl earrings reflexively. You two miss nothing, do you? It's genetic, Ethan replied with a shrug. Pattern recognition and analytical thinking. The comment hung in the air for a moment. Though the twins had known about their biological father since they were 12, they rarely referenced him directly. Lauren had told them the essentials, that William Harrison was a neurosurgeon from a prestigious Boston medical family who had rejected the pregnancy and offered money for an abortion. The twins had processed this information with remarkable maturity, asking questions about medical history, but displaying little emotional curiosity about the man who had contributed to their DNA. Their lunch arrived, carefully plated, nutritionally optimized meals that reflected both Lauren's attention to health and their privileged lifestyle. As they ate, conversation flowed easily between company updates and the twins' latest academic achievements. Stanford sent the final acceptance package for the special program, Emma mentioned, pulling documents from her bag. We'd start in September, 2 years ahead of schedule. Lauren examined the materials with a mixture of pride and wistfulness. Her children were extraordinary. Emma's groundbreaking work in artificial intelligence for medical diagnostics and Ethan's mathematical models for predicting drug efficacy had attracted attention from the most prestigious universities in the world. The Stanford program would allow them to begin college-level work while still completing their high school requirements. Have you decided? Lauren asked, knowing better than to influence their choice. She had always treated them as autonomous individuals, capable of making significant decisions with her guidance but not her direction. We want to accept, Ethan answered, exchanging a glance with his sister. The research facilities are unmatched, and Professor Chen has already offered lab space for our joint project. Lauren nodded, tamping down the maternal instinct to keep them close. Then I'll sign the acceptance forms this evening. Their dessert arrived, artisanal sorbets for the twins and espresso for Lauren, when her phone vibrated with a message from her assistant. The final guest list for the Plaza Gala just came in. You asked to review it before approval. Excuse me for just a moment, Lauren said, opening the document on her tablet. She scrolled through names of industry leaders, hospital administrators, research pioneers, the usual attendees at such events. Near the bottom, a name caught her eye, triggering a physical reaction she hadn't experienced in years. William Harrison, MD, PhD, Director of Neurosurgical Innovation, Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. The espresso cup froze halfway to her lips. William was in New York, at Sloan Kettering, and he would be at the gala? Mom, is everything all right? Emma's voice pulled Lauren back to the present. Yes, of course, Lauren replied smoothly, years of corporate negotiation having perfected her ability to conceal reactions. Just a surprising addition to the guest list for the gala. The twins exchanged another of their silent communications, a glance that contained an entire conversation. Who? Ethan asked directly. Lauren considered deflecting but opted for honesty. Your biological father will apparently be attending. He's now at Sloan Kettering. Both twins straightened almost imperceptibly, their interest clinical rather than emotional. Will you speak with him? Emma asked. That depends on whether he recognizes me, Lauren answered truthfully. 15 years is a long time. The remainder of lunch proceeded normally, though Lauren's mind occasionally drifted to the unexpected development. She had imagined encountering William again someday, had even fantasized about it during the darkest early days, but now that it might actually happen, she felt oddly detached. The wounded young woman who had once craved vindication no longer existed. In her place was someone whose success had rendered old hurts irrelevant. Later that afternoon, in her penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park, Lauren stood before her expansive closet, considering options for the gala. The event was still 2 weeks away, but preparation had always been one of her strengths. She selected a Dior gown in deep emerald, a color she knew complemented her complexion and drew attention in crowded rooms. The price tag would have represented 3 months' rent in her Somerville days. Now it was a business expense, an investment in the image of success that helped secure deals and partnerships. As she held the dress against herself, evaluating its effect in the full-length mirror, Lauren caught sight of a small photograph framed on her dresser, herself holding the newborn twins in the hospital, exhausted but determined. She had kept it as a reminder of where she had started, a talisman against complacency. Across town, in a modest apartment near the hospital where he had recently taken a position, William Harrison was reviewing his own invitation to the gala. At 47, his once golden future had materialized into a respectable but unremarkable career. After a contentious divorce and professional setbacks in Boston, the move to New York represented a fresh start, though not the triumphant one he had once envisioned for himself. William had no idea that Lauren Mitchell, the woman receiving the evening's highest honor, was the same Lauren he had dismissed from his office 15 years earlier. He had no inkling that the Mitchell biotech empire had been built by the woman he had deemed never enough for someone like him. And he certainly couldn't imagine that the brilliant Mitchell twins mentioned in the program were his own biological children. As evening approached, Lauren received the twins' final acceptance forms for Stanford, signing them with a fountain pen that had been a gift from Emma and Ethan on her 35th birthday. The gesture represented another step in their inevitable journey toward independence, a bittersweet milestone for any parent, but especially for one who had shaped her entire life around her children's future. "All done," she announced, joining them in the living room where they were engaged in a complex virtual reality simulation, something they had designed themselves to test cognitive responses to spatial challenges. "Thanks, Mom," Ethan said, removing his VR headset. "We were thinking about the gala." "We want to attend with you," Emma finished, her expression serious. "If that's okay?" Lauren studied their faces, searching for signs of emotional turmoil regarding the potential encounter with William. Finding none, she nodded. "Of course. You've both earned recognition for your contributions to the Institute's work." "And if we happen to meet Dr. Harrison?" Ethan asked, his tone neutral. "That's entirely your choice," Lauren replied carefully. "You owe him nothing. Not acknowledgement, not courtesy, not even curiosity. But if you want to meet him, I won't stand in your way." The twins nodded, apparently satisfied with this answer. Their reaction confirmed what Lauren had long suspected. William existed for them as a scientific fact rather than an emotional reality. Their family unit had always been complete with just the three of them. As the day drew to a close, Lauren's assistant confirmed the final arrangements for the gala. The Mitchell family would arrive at 7, red carpet photographers had been briefed, security protocols were in place, everything proceeding with the precision that characterized all Mitchell biotech operations. That night, as Lauren reviewed her acceptance speech one final time, her thoughts drifted to William. Would he recognize her immediately, or would the revelation come gradually? Would he make the connection to the twins, see his own eyes reflected in theirs? What would it feel like to stand before him not as the desperate young woman he had discarded, but as Lauren Mitchell, one of the most powerful figures in American medicine? While Lauren adjusted Ethan's bow tie in the entrance of the Plaza Hotel, William Harrison was just 30 meters away, completely unaware that his past, present, and future were about to collide in a single explosive night. The Plaza Hotel's grand ballroom glittered like a scene from another era, crystal chandeliers casting prismatic light over the gathering of America's medical elite. Lauren paused at the entrance, taking in the spectacle with practiced composure. Behind her, Ethan and Emma flanked her sides like a royal entourage, their poised demeanor belying their 14 years. "Ready?" Lauren asked, though she already knew the answer. The twins had inherited her determination along with William's analytical mind, a formidable combination that had made them as comfortable in gala settings as in research laboratories. "Absolutely," Emma replied, adjusting her glasses with a gesture that reminded Lauren of herself during board presentations, precise, deliberate, confident. As they entered the ballroom, heads turned. The Mitchell family had become recognizable figures in medical and business circles. The brilliant entrepreneur mother and her prodigy children whose innovations were transforming pediatric medicine. Lauren navigated the space with the ease of someone accustomed to commanding attention, accepting congratulations and exchanging pleasantries while subtly scanning the room. She didn't see William immediately. The ballroom was crowded with over 300 guests, hospital administrators in conservative formal wear, pharmaceutical executives displaying wealth through subtle signifiers, researchers whose brilliant minds were clothed in rented tuxedos and modest gowns. "Dr. Chen is signaling us," Ethan noted, gesturing toward Mitchell Biotech's lead researcher who stood conversing with the director of the National Institutes of Health. Lauren steered her children through the crowd, accepting a flute of champagne from a passing server. "Dr. Kessler, what a pleasure to see you again," she greeted the NIH director. "I believe you've met my children, Ethan and Emma." "Indeed I have," Kessler replied warmly. "Your presentation on neural network applications in diagnostic imaging was remarkable, Emma. Hard to believe you're only 14. Emma engaged the director in a technical discussion that would have challenged most postdoctoral researchers, while Ethan joined a conversation with the head of pediatric oncology at Johns Hopkins. Lauren observed with quiet pride. Her children moved through this world of medical luminaries as equals rather than curiosities. Across the room, William Harrison stood alone near the bar, nursing a glass of scotch. At 47, his once golden looks had faded slightly. Hair thinning at the temples, lines etching deeper around eyes that had lost some of their confident gleam. His tuxedo, while expensive, hung slightly loose on a frame that had grown leaner with age and stress. William didn't recognize Lauren immediately. His gaze passed over her as he surveyed the room, noting the clusters of influence and power with the instinct of someone who had once expected to be at their center. When he looked again, something registered, a flicker of familiarity that he couldn't immediately place. The evening progressed with the ritualized precision of high society functions. Dinner was served at elaborately decorated tables, conversation flowing among discussions of research breakthroughs, hospital politics, and funding challenges. Lauren's table was positioned prominently near the stage, befitting her status as the evening's honoree. At 9:30, the program began. The MC, a distinguished physician known for his television appearances, welcomed the gathering and outlined the evening's awards. Lesser recognitions came first: Lifetime Achievement for a retiring researcher, humanitarian awards for doctors who had established clinics in underserved areas, grants announced for promising young scientists. William's attention had drifted, his thoughts on the department politics awaiting him at Sloan Kettering the following day when the MC's voice cut through his distraction. "And now, the moment we've all been waiting for. The award for Innovator of the Year goes to a woman who has revolutionized how we treat our most vulnerable patients. Her precision platform delivery system has transformed pediatric oncology, reducing side effects by 78% while maintaining therapeutic efficacy. Please welcome to the stage the founder and CEO of Mitchell Biotechnology, the remarkable Lauren Mitchell." The ballroom erupted in applause as Lauren rose gracefully from her seat. William's champagne glass froze halfway to his lips, recognition hitting him with physical force. Lauren? His Lauren? The woman ascending the stage in a designer gown, accepting the medical community's highest innovation honor, was the same woman he had dismissed from his office 15 years ago with a check for $1,000. Lauren took her place at the podium, the spotlight illuminating her in a way that emphasized the dramatic contrast between her present and past. Gone was the uncertain young woman in bargain business wear. In her place stood a commanding figure in Dior, with the confident posture of someone who had built an empire. "Thank you for this tremendous honor," she began, her voice strong and clear. "When I founded Mitchell Biotechnology, I was driven by a simple belief: that we could develop treatments as kind as they are effective. that children fighting cancer shouldn't have to lose their childhood to the very treatments meant to save them. William stared, transfixed. Her voice had changed, not just in confidence but in cadence, the careful articulation of someone accustomed to being listened to having their words valued and recorded. As she spoke about persistence and purpose, about transformation and vision, William felt a creeping sense of unreality. His eyes darted to the table she had left, where two teenagers sat watching their mother with evident pride. The boy was tall, with a serious expression and analytical gaze. The girl, slighter but with an intensity that radiated even from a distance. Both had striking blue eyes he recognized from his own mirror. The realization struck William with nauseating clarity. Those weren't just Lauren's children, they were his children, the twins she had been carrying when he'd dismissed her from his life with cruel efficiency. The pregnancy he'd considered an inconvenience to be eliminated had produced these two extraordinary young people, now receiving admiring glances from the very medical establishment he had once believed would elevate him to greatness. Lauren's speech concluded to enthusiastic applause. As she returned to her table, accepting congratulations from luminaries who reached out to touch her arm or shake her hand, William remained frozen in place. The scotch in his hand forgotten, he watched as she resumed her seat between the twins, accepting their quiet congratulations with a warm smile. For the next hour, William circulated through the ballroom in a daze, drawing gradually closer to Lauren's position like a satellite pulled into orbit. He caught fragments of conversations about her: transformed pediatric oncology, rejected acquisition offers up to $2 billion. The twins are even more brilliant than she is. Finally, as the formal program ended and guests began to mingle more freely, William saw his opportunity. Lauren stood momentarily alone near the bar, her admirers momentarily dispersed. With a courage bolstered by scotch and desperation, he approached. "Lauren? Lauren Mitchell?" His voice sounded strange to his own ears. "It's me, William Harrison." Time seemed to stop as Lauren turned to face him. Her expression revealed nothing. No surprise, no anger, no triumph, just the polite interest she might show any professional acquaintance. "Dr. Harrison," she replied, her voice controlled and professional. "What a surprise to find you here." William struggled to reconcile this composed woman with the tearful young graduate he had last seen. "You look incredible," he managed. "Your speech was inspiring. I had no idea you had become all of this." A small, enigmatic smile curved Lauren's lips. Few people did. William searched desperately for something to say that wouldn't sound pathetic or presumptuous. "I've been following the work on the Precision platform. The results in reducing neurotoxicity are remarkable. I never would have imagined—" "Mom?" Emma's voice interrupted as she and Ethan approached. "Dr. Goldstein wants to discuss that idea about medication distribution in rural areas." William's face drained of color as he found himself face to face with the twins. They were 14, exactly the age they should be if they were born 9 months after that fateful meeting in his office. The boy was nearly his height already, with the same jawline William had inherited from his own father. The girl's analytical gaze was unnervingly familiar, the same look he had seen in family photographs of his mother in her youth. "These are your children?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. Lauren performed the introductions with deliberate casualness. "Ethan, Emma, this is Dr. Harrison, an old acquaintance from Boston." The twins extended their hands with perfect social grace, showing neither recognition nor curiosity. William took their hands mechanically, feeling the firm confidence of their handshakes. "You're extraordinary," he murmured, seeing his own features reflected in their faces. "Thank you, sir," Ethan replied politely. "We need to go, Mom. The Stanford dean is waiting." William grasped at this information like a drowning man. Stanford, at 14. Lauren's reply carried a hint of pride beneath its matter-of-fact delivery. Special program for exceptional young minds. Ethan is developing a mathematical model for predicting medication efficacy, and Emma has an AI project for early diagnosis. The twins moved away to speak with an elderly man in academic regalia, leaving Lauren and William alone again. William stepped closer, lowering his voice urgently. "Lauren, we need to talk privately. Those are my children, aren't they? Why did you never tell me? I had a right to know." The moment Lauren had imagined countless times during sleepless nights 15 years ago had finally arrived. She studied William's face, the added lines, the diminished confidence, the desperation that now replaced the arrogance she remembered. "It's curious how life brings us face to face with our past choices, isn't it, Dr. Harrison?" she said quietly. "If I had known," William began, his voice intense, "I would have helped. I would have been present. Things were complicated then, but I would have done the right thing." Lauren's soft laugh held no humor. "The right thing? Like offering me $1,000 to resolve the problem?" William glanced around nervously, aware that their conversation was attracting subtle attention. "I was young and foolish," he said, lowering his voice further. "I made a terrible mistake, but they're my children too. I have rights." "Rights?" Lauren interrupted, her composure intact, though her eyes hardened slightly. "Let's discuss rights, William. What about my right to support when I was carrying your children? What about their right to a father who wanted them?" "I want to make amends," William insisted. "Financial compensation, whatever you think is fair. I can contribute to their education, their future." "Compensation?" Lauren's laugh was genuine this time. "William, your children have trust funds larger than your net worth. They don't need crumbs from someone who once deemed them insufficient." Their exchange was drawing more attention now. Lauren noticed several prominent physicians watching with careful discretion, pretending not to listen while missing nothing. William made a visible effort to control himself. "I was young and stupid, Lauren. I made a terrible mistake. You have to understand. A mistake that built my life," she replied evenly. "Do you know what your real mistake was, William? It wasn't abandoning me. It was underestimating what I could become without you." The announcement for the Philanthropist of the Year award interrupted their conversation. Lauren's name called again for her work establishing free clinics in underserved communities throughout the Bronx. The crowd applauded enthusiastically as Lauren prepared to return to the stage. "I have to receive my second award of the evening," she told William with quiet finality. "Feel free to watch what the woman who would never be anything compared to you managed to build." While she walked away, Lauren felt a strange peace. The confrontation she had imagined for 15 years had finally happened, but instead of the monster who had populated her nightmares, she had found only a diminished man, while she had become larger than her most ambitious dreams. The whispers spread like wildfire through the elite medical circles of New York in the days following the Plaza Gala. The story was too delicious not to share. William Harrison, the neurosurgeon who had recently transferred from Boston after a series of setbacks, had abandoned Lauren Mitchell when she was pregnant with his twins. The same Lauren Mitchell who now commanded a biotech empire worth billions. The same twins who were already making waves in the scientific community as prodigies. Lauren had expected some ripples but was surprised by how quickly the story traveled. Colleagues who had witnessed their tense exchange at the gala discreetly inquired about the details. She neither confirmed nor denied, maintaining the dignified silence that had become her trademark in professional matters. The truth required no embellishment. Reality was more satisfying than any revenge she could have orchestrated. 3 days after the gala, the first email arrived from William. The subject line read simply, "Please read." Lauren stared at it for several minutes before opening it, curious despite herself. "Lauren, I cannot express the shock of seeing you again and learning about our children. I made a terrible mistake 15 years ago, one I've regretted more than you can imagine. Please allow me the chance to speak with you privately. There is so much I need to say." She deleted it without responding. 2 more emails followed over the next day, each growing more desperate in tone. Then flowers arrived at her office, an elaborate arrangement with a card pleading for 15 minutes of her time. Lauren instructed her assistant to donate them to the pediatric ward at Mount Sinai. A week after the gala, Lauren was reviewing clinical trial data in her office when her assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Ms. Mitchell, there's a Dr. William Harrison in the lobby. He doesn't have an appointment but insists on seeing you. Security is asking for direction." Lauren paused, her finger hovering over the intercom button. Part of her wanted to have him escorted out, to deny him even the satisfaction of rejection. But another part, the part that had built an empire on rational decisions rather than emotional reactions, recognized that this conversation was inevitable. "Tell security to escort him up. 5 minutes only." She used those 5 minutes to center herself, standing at the window overlooking Manhattan, drawing strength from the view of what she had built. When William was shown in, Lauren turned with the composed expression she used for challenging board meetings. "Dr. Harrison," she acknowledged, remaining behind her desk. "I've allowed 5 minutes. Please be brief." William looked distinctly uncomfortable in her domain. His suit, while expensive, seemed somehow diminished against the backdrop of her expansive corner office with its floor-to-ceiling windows and tasteful displays of her numerous awards. He stood awkwardly, as if unsure whether to sit without invitation. "I researched you after the gala," he began, his voice lacking the authoritative tone she remembered. "What you've accomplished is extraordinary, Lauren. Something I never managed, despite all my family connections." "I didn't invite you here for a recitation of my CV," Lauren replied coolly. "What do you want, William?" He took a step forward, hands spread in a gesture of appeal. "To know my children, to be part of their lives, even if belatedly. I can offer my name, my medical heritage. The Harrison influence still carries weight in Boston medical circles." Lauren studied him with a mixture of pity and disbelief. After 15 years, he still didn't understand what he had lost, still saw his value in terms of family connections and professional status rather than human worth. "You still don't get it, do you?" she said quietly, opening a drawer to withdraw a thick folder. "They don't need your name. The Mitchell name has opened every door your heritage could have opened and quite a few more." She slid the folder across her desk. William approached cautiously and opened it to find comprehensive profiles of Ethan and Emma, academic records, scientific publications, patents pending, awards received. His eyes widened as he flipped through evidence of achievements that would be remarkable for graduate students, let alone 14-year-olds. "This is impossible," he murmured, stopping at a photograph of Emma receiving a Young Innovator Award from the president of the National Academy of Sciences. "Hardly impossible," Lauren replied. "They're exceptional children who've had every opportunity and encouragement." William looked up, his expression stricken. "Do they know about me?" "Ethan and Emma have known about you since they were 12, Lauren answered evenly. "They asked, and I told them the truth. All of it." William paled visibly. "And what did they say?" The moment had a surgical precision to it. Lauren could almost feel William's desperate hope like a tangible thing in the air between them. "They asked if they wanted to meet you. I said it was their choice." She paused, letting the silence stretch uncomfortably. "They said they didn't see any reason to. Not out of anger or hurt, William. Out of indifference. You simply aren't relevant to the life we've built." The door opened then, and Ethan entered, stopping short when he saw William. "Sorry to interrupt, Mom. I just wanted to let you know the video conference with the Nobel Committee is confirmed for Thursday." William stared at his biological son, visibly struggling to process this casual reference. "Nobel Committee? He's 14 years old." "The Young Scientists Committee," Lauren clarified after Ethan had left with a polite nod to their visitor. "Ethan is a finalist for his work in mathematical modeling. Emma won last year for her algorithmic innovations." William sank into a chair without invitation, the magnitude of what he had lost finally registering on his face. Lauren recognized the expression. It was the same one she had seen in the mirror during those desperate early days when the full weight of her situation had crashed down upon her. The difference was that her despair had fueled determination. His seemed to hollow him out. "I could have been part of this," he whispered, more to himself than to her. "They could have been Harrison's." "No," Lauren corrected gently. "They couldn't have. Because the man who offered me $1,000 to resolve the problem wasn't capable of seeing their potential. The man who told me I would never amount to anything compared to him couldn't have nurtured their brilliance." She stood, signaling the end of their meeting. "I didn't build this empire to spite you, William. I built it because you left me no choice but to become stronger than I ever imagined possible." William rose slowly, aged beyond his years by regret. "I never meant to." "You meant exactly what you said that day," Lauren interrupted. "You were perfectly clear. And now, 15 years later, so am I. You have children who are brilliant, compassionate, and extraordinary. But they aren't yours in any way that matters. You made your choice." In the lobby, William paused to look up at the Mitchell name displayed in elegant gold lettering. The security guard watched him curiously as he stood there, a man confronting the magnitude of his greatest mistake. In the parking garage, he walked past a row of luxury vehicles, recognizing a Porsche identical to the one he had driven when he abandoned Lauren, now with a personalized license plate reading MTCHLL1. 3 weeks later, a thick envelope arrived at Lauren's office marked "Personal and Confidential." Inside, she found legal documents, a formal renunciation of any paternity claims, signed and notarized. Attached was a handwritten note. "You were right. They don't need me. Perhaps they never did. I'm leaving New York. There's a position at a smaller hospital in Chicago where I can at least do some good. I won't contact you or the twins again. William." Lauren filed the documents in her personal safe, another chapter closed. That summer, Mitchell Biotechnology made headlines with a historic acquisition, purchasing the small pharmaceutical company in Chicago where William had taken a consulting position. The press release made no mention of personnel changes, though industry insiders noted that all employees were retained except one. On a bright September morning, Lauren walked through the newly renovated pediatric wing of Mount Sinai Hospital, funded by the Mitchell Foundation. Children who once would have suffered through devastating chemotherapy side effects now played in colorful rooms, their hair intact, their bodies strong enough to fight both cancer and everyday infections. Ethan and Emma accompanied her, engaged in animated discussion about the research projects they would pursue at Stanford. At 14, they stood on the cusp of adulthood, their potential limited only by time and imagination. A nurse approached, holding a magazine. "Ms. Mitchell, I thought you might want to see this." Lauren glanced at the cover of Forbes, where she and the twins smiled beneath the headline, "The Mitchell Dynasty: How a Single Mother Revolutionized American Medicine." She closed the magazine and handed it back with a serene smile. "Old news. We're more interested in what comes next." As they left the hospital into the brilliant Manhattan sunshine, their driver held the limousine door open. Lauren watched her children enter, not with the triumph of someone who had won an ancient battle, but with the peace of someone who had discovered that the best revenge isn't retribution, but the complete irrelevance of the past in the face of the present's glory. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen.